She'll be talking about staying the best health you can.
We are excited to begin our next session titled, Staying in the Best Health to Be the Best Candidate. Position yourself to receive gene therapy, featuring a remarkable speaker who brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and expertise to the sickle cell community. I'm delighted to introduce Dr. Dora Clayton. Dr. Clayton is an associate professor at Marquette University in the College of Nursing and serves as adjunct faculty at the Medical College of Wisconsin. She is a community-engaged scholar, working closely with the community to advance health equity for youth living with sickle cell disease. In this session, Dr. Clayton will provide valuable insights into how individuals can optimize their health to become strong candidates for gene therapy, as well as the challenges and opportunities related to accessing these innovative treatments. Welcome again, and thank you for being part of this important event.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I bring you greetings from Marquette University and the College of Nursing in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The weather here is in the 80s, and so I'm feeling a little bit jealous about not being in LA, but I hope my temperature is really close to yours. All right. I am just going to bring up my PowerPoint.
Dr. Dora, your screen went down. Do not see your slide anymore.
I am working on bringing it back up. All right, just want to confirm, are you seeing my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Again, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Dora Clayton Jones, or Dr. CJ is often what I'm referred to here. And so I welcome that to be called Dr. CJ. And I, again, bring you greetings from Marquette University and College of Nursing. And I would like to just thank High End Wellness for the invitation just to spend a little bit of time with you this afternoon. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about staying in the best health to be the best candidate, position yourself to receive gene therapy. And my first couple of slides, I'm actually going to pass those up because much of it was reviewed. And I like to just confirm that there are no known conflicts of interest associated with this presentation. All right. So starting with steps to optimal health, maintaining a healthy lifestyle. And some of this is review because we've heard about some of the ways that to maintain a healthy lifestyle. But from my perspective and many others, oftentimes we can't hear it enough. And so I will be talking about the nutritional aspect to start off. And so from a nutrition standpoint, and I know, healthy eating it is something that we have to be intentional about. And so sometimes we're challenged with eating healthy. We want to eat healthy, but sometimes the other things are calling our name. And I always say, if we can do things in moderation of the foods that may not be as healthy, because chances are we're going to eat something that's not all that healthy at some point. But if we could do it in moderation, thinking about those foods that will support health and optimal health, high protein foods. Um, Protein supports tissue repair and overall growth. And so when we have foods that are high in protein, like lean meats, fish, eggs, your beans, tofu, all of those are excellent sources of protein. And so we do need to have enough protein on board. I think it's also important because some diets in this day and time, individuals are looking for high protein diets. And sometimes it's too much protein, which can be too much of a protein load on our kidneys. And so it's really important to have the right amount of protein based upon your weight, and always suggest working with a nutritionist, a dietitian, your healthcare provider, to ensure that you are consuming an adequate amount of protein per day. Then your fruits and vegetables, this picture is colorful, and you want your intake to be as colorful as possible. Your vegetables and your fruits, they provide essential vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that fight off that oxidative stress that can build up and that inflammation that can build up, both of which can be elevated in sickle cell. And so dark leafy greens like spinach and kale, berries, citrus, fruits are especially beneficial. And there are some creative ways to include this in our diet. Some of you may already be including these items in a smoothie. Some of you may be making fruit pops or veggie pops. So whatever creative ways you have, I just encourage you to do that. Folic acid is important for red blood cell production, and that's crucial. So again, leafy greens, beans, your fortified cereals are all rich in folic acid. And then your iron-rich foods. We have to also be mindful of how much iron we are taking in, and making sure that we're not taking in too much iron, and that we have the right balance, because if there's a history of blood transfusions, we want to make sure that the intake is something that has been discussed with your healthcare provider and that it is an adequate amount for you. But iron-rich foods, when consuming, it's important that we look at a variety such as lean meats, your fortified cereals, your beans. All of those are great sources for iron. The omega-3 fatty acids help reduce inflammation and may reduce the frequency and the severity of pain episodes. Those omega-3 fatty acids also support heart health, which is important, as there can be some cardiovascular risk. So foods like salmon, flax seeds, and walnuts, all of those are great sources for your omega-3 fatty acids. Your calcium and vitamin D support bone health, and bone health can be compromised. Oftentimes, we as Black individuals, darker skinned individuals will have lower vitamin D. Maybe we're not getting enough sun exposure. Maybe we're not getting enough in our diet. But it is important, or even lactose intolerant, the sources, that contain vitamin D, we may not have a tolerance for it. And so it's important to know vitamin D levels. And I encourage that in everyone to know your vitamin D level, and to identify if supplements might even be something that should be considered. And again, when talking about vitamins, you want to make sure you have that discussion with your healthcare provider, because it is such a thing as vitamin overload, and we want it to be in balance. So make sure you have that talk with your healthcare provider. But oftentimes these are those vitamins that we're usually deficient, and we're walking around deficient, and we don't always know that. So calcium and vitamin D, those can be found in your so calcium rich foods, your dairy, products, your fortified plant-based milk products, your leafy green vegetables, along with vitamin D sources that are, and safe sun exposure as well. And then zinc is another one that is a mineral that aids in immune function and wound healing. And a lot of times when feeling like something is coming on in terms of an illness, a chewable zinc tablet it can be something that can help buffer that and help with prevention. And so it helps with immune function. Zinc helps with wound healing, and it can also decrease pain episodes. So food like nuts, seeds, whole grains, and seafood are great sources of zinc. And so it's important to kind of do an assessment, do an evaluation periodically. We have to pay attention to what we're putting in our bodies. And we have to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, I know I'm not getting enough of the green vegetables, or I know I'm not having a variety, or I know I'm not getting in at 5 to 7 servings a day. And you know, a serving is like half a cup. So it's important to be honest with ourselves and where we are. That way we can meet ourselves where we are, and we can then take some action and next steps in optimizing our health. Some other nutritional considerations include a well-rounded multivitamin can help to cover any potential gaps that may exist as it relates to nutrition. And again, avoiding extra iron unless your provider is recommending that, because that would be a case-by-case situation. Hydration, we talk about water all the time, and many of us may know this formula by heart and by memory, that your water intake should be your weight divided by 2, and that is the amount in ounces. So for example, for someone that weighs 150 pounds, divide that by 2, 75 ounces, which is approximately divided by 8 ounces to determine the cups, approximately nine cups, a little over 9 cups. And so some of us may have a challenge drinking water. And when you think about 9 cups, that just may seem like a lot of water, especially when it's cold out. So I say that when you are not used to drinking water, you have to be intentional about it so that the body can kind of develop this need for it, and you can, you know, be thirsty when you are consuming adequate amounts of water. So be intentional about consuming water. I have that pretty picture there for a reason. Drinking fruit-infused water, drinking water infused with some cucumbers or whatever it would take to support hydration, to support you drinking an adequate amount of water per day. When I'm working with young people, I always tell them that, you know, drinking water helps keep your breath smelling the freshest. So you're not walking around with stinky breath, and then that gets them talking about stinky breath, and they don't want stinky breath. So, which is true, you know, if you're drinking an adequate amount of water, it helps with that as well. So, so carrying a water bottle, trying water at different temperatures. I prefer water at room temperature or warm, even when it's cold outside. That's just my preference. And so don't try to mimic what someone else is doing as it relates to water intake. Do what works best for you. Optimize your water intake that is, you know, recommended for your body weight. Physical activity and exercise. There are some, you know, lower intensity, low impact exercises that individuals can do that are comfortable for you. So some individuals like to do stretching and kind of like stretch out on the floor and do some stretching exercises. Some individuals may like to do walking, and there are some who like to do some strength exercises, such as using a band. Dr. Joy Ogunsoleye has conducted studies, as well as Robert Liam, but one study in particular that Dr. Joy Ogunsoleye conducted found a correlation, found a connection with having peak oxygen values and muscular strength. So by building strength, it optimize the oxygen values that is available in the body to be used in the body at the level of the tissues in the cell and et cetera. And so, we've heard how, exercise, it can be kind of a balancing act, but doing something that is feasible for your comfort level and enjoyment as well. Perhaps it's turning on the Tamia line dance song and dancing to that for a little bit. So there's no no written way to say you have to exercise a certain way. You have to exercise one time a day for 30 minutes, for 60 minutes. If you want to divide that up and do a line dance, if you want to switch it up and bring out your bands, there are different ways to get exercise in and invest in yourself. So the other part of that is doing it at a time of day when you're most likely to do it. So if that's in the morning, if that's around a meal time or before meal time, if that's before you go to bed, just think about when is the best time for you to fit in that activity. Again, with exercise, you want to be safe and you want to avoid extreme temperatures and you want to stay hydrated. So the recommended amount of water that you're drinking should be increased when you are exercising. So having those regular checkups and monitoring is important for optimizing your health. And yes, things do come up. I've missed some appointments and things do come up, but it's important to reschedule, to go for those regular checkups, those regular visits, so that your health can be monitored, so that complications can be prevented and or best managed, and improving your health and having the best therapy, having the best plan. So being sure to attend those regular checkups with your health providers. Vaccinations and preventative care, staying up to date with vaccines. I know vaccines is something that is a choice, but it does show to prevent infection. It does, we do have record of that. So optimizing health and taking time to schedule for those preventative vaccines. And then your regular checkups and monitoring are also monitoring for organ function and seeing how organ function is, and just getting a really good overall picture of how you're doing since the last visit.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry, we're running now 10 minutes along and I don't have a way to type it in and let you know. So will you be around for questions? I know there's going to be questions. We're just going to try to get through because I know these people that are here want to be able to ask you some questions also.
Okay.
Or how many more slides do you have? You want to go?
I'm sorry, I thought I had 20 minutes, but I can, I'll just go to the slide that has my email.
Yeah, that would be great. You did have 20 minutes, but we started a little bit and I'm getting
So that's the slide from my email. I can be reached at that email address, and thank you.
And you will be here at the end, hopefully, for questions, because I have one. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Okay, so I hope, again, please write these questions down, because if your brain is anything like mine, it'll be fleeting. Okay, so our next speaker is going to be Dr. Patel, and she's going to talk to us about the ethics of gene therapy, and she's going to have her wonderful video here.
Our next session titled The Ethics of Gene Therapy, featuring a remarkable speaker who brings a wealth of knowledge, experience, and expertise to the sickle cell community. I'm delighted to introduce Ami Patel. After obtaining her medical degree at Western University, Ami completed an internal medicine pediatrics residency at Loma Linda University and a pediatric adult fellowship in sickle cell disease at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. She is now the associate director of the Sickle Cell Comprehensive Program at UCLA. In this session, Ami will provide valuable insights into the ethical considerations surrounding gene therapy, the the challenges and opportunities in accessing these treatments, and the role ethics plays in patient care. Welcome again, and thank you for being part of this important event.
Well, thank you everyone for that warm welcome. And I know we're running a little bit behind on time, so it's been a long 3 days, so I'll try to make this as brief as possible. So I'm here to speak about the ethics of gene therapy. I have no financial or any conflicts of interest. So I'm first going to talk a little bit about my story. So my sister Hina, she was born with sickle cell beta thalassemia 0. She suffered severe complications. And so once she was in high school, she started having increased vaso-occlusive crises after having increased stress in her life, trying to keep up with her classmates, trying to keep up with her schoolwork. Every single crisis that she had was a constant reminder of her unrelenting suffering. And so at the age of 17, she underwent an unrelated donor bone marrow transplant in hopes for a cure. The hope, the optimism that she would be cured washed away any fear of that hypothetical risk that loomed ahead. And so once she underwent that transplant, she unfortunately developed graft versus host disease. And after 2 years of battling graft versus host disease, she passed away. And so Dr. Sharma and Dr. Thompson did a very great explanation of what bone marrow transplant is, so I won't go over what that is exactly. But I did want to highlight, in 1983, that was the very first bone marrow transplant that was done in an individual with sickle cell disease, Kimberlyn. So she was 8 years old when she had acute myeloid leukemia and she was diagnosed. And so they did a bone marrow transplant to cure her leukemia. And what they found is that it also cured her sickle cell disease. And so this is a picture of her today now, and a picture when she was 8 years old, and this was done at St. Jude Children's. And so this excitement around a cure and bone marrow transplant, there was a lot during that time, and really in the 1990s and 2000s. It was the cure. Sorry, I don't know why my slides are not quite right. MacBook versus this, I think it changes a little bit, so I apologize. It's supposed to say cure. But there is a lot of excitement around bone marrow transplant. However, as more and more individuals had bone marrow transplant, there was increasing hesitation regarding the increased complications that you started to see. And so this hesitation was reflected in the NHLBI expert panel. And so although clinical trials have provided promising results and cure appears to be possible in a large proportion of patients receiving hematopoietic stem cell transplantation, additional research is still needed that addresses the potential risk of this therapy before hematopoietic stem cell transplantation can become widely used therapy. And so this uncertainty and this overly optimistic view on allogeneic bone marrow transplant initially really makes me pause about all of this excitement regarding these 2 FDA gene therapies that just came out. Don't get me wrong, I still am excited. There is a lot of benefits of gene therapy. As we've heard before, benefits include decreasing vaso-occlusive crises, benefits of decreased laboratory markers of hemolysis. And so there is a lot of excitement. But I really want to balance this hope and optimism with a lot of the realism of the unknowns. And so there's a lot of questions that we still don't know. And so, one, how long will this treatment last? We have about 6 years worth of data. We know that it has really improved vaso-occlusive crises in that 6 years. But will that last the rest of your lifetime after you get gene therapy? Who is the ideal candidate for gene therapy? If you ask a transplanter, it might be a little bit different than what a sickle cell doctor might say, which might be a little bit different than what a patient or a caregiver or an advocate might say. Does a degree of hemoglobin S mean ongoing hemolysis. So what I mean by this is that after you have gene therapy, there shows to be decreased hemolysis or red blood cell breakdown, but there isn't complete decrease of hemolysis. Does that mean that there's still going to be some level of organ dysfunction that happens later on? Probably less than if someone didn't undergo gene therapy, but what does that fully mean in terms of your organs? Who is responsible for follow-up? So the FDA mandated 15 years, but who's responsible? Is it the transplanter? Is it the hematologist, the sickle cell doctor, the primary care doctor? And what does that follow-up entail? What screenings still need to be done? How should we treat ongoing sickle cell disease complications after we have gene therapy? It might decrease vaso-occlusive crises, but what if the gene therapy didn't fully resolve priapism episodes, or if you still have pretty severe pneumonia, acute chest, or any other degree of sickle cell disease complication? And if you do suffer from that, what is now that treatment? Do we start you on hydroxyurea? Do we start you on another FDA-approved treatment? We don't know. We don't have that data. What does success mean? Every person will define this differently. So what does a successful gene therapy mean? This mean that you have no clinical outcomes for sickle cell disease complications? Or are we just looking at your blood work and saying, hey, your hemoglobin S level is decreased? I don't think a warrior would agree on that. Who is monitoring off-target effects and for how long? And so these are just the start of the infinite questions that I have and that many sickle cell disease doctors still have and are trying to come up with consensus guidelines. The other challenge that I have now that it's FDA approved is that there's no standard consent process. And who's providing that informed consent? Is it the transplanters? Sometimes the lens from a transplanter and a sickle cell specialist may be slightly differently. And so who is providing that informed consent? And will there be differences in terms of the institution that's giving that informed consent? The other big component is this underdiagnosed cognitive impairment in sickle cell warriors. And so the study that was just published in July, they examined 142 participants. They looked at controls with similar demographics and age, and 88 of those individuals had sickle cell disease. They used the NIH toolbox to evaluate neurocognitive impairments and skills. And what they found was that there was lower performance in oral reading recognition tests, so language, flanker inhibitory control and attention test, which showed executive function and attention. And the last thing, which isn't quite on this slide, but it was showing an effect in processing speeds. And so this underdiagnosed cognitive impairments, executive function and processing speeds are affected. So what does executive dysfunction mean? Difficulties analyzing, planning, problem solving, scheduling, and completing tasks. Neuropsych testing is not routinely done or available in the sickle cell population or even in general. And so when you look at executive dysfunction and informed consent, should neuropsych testing be mandated to fully evaluate if a warrior is able and processed the information that was given to them during the consent process? And so these are some of the tools, if there was executive dysfunction, that a provider should be doing in order to fully give informed consent. Providing simplified information, multiple sessions. An interactive consent process is key. When you explain something, you should get some sort of feedback and repeat, making sure that everything you explain, including the risk and unknowns, are reiterated. Making sure that the caregivers are involved. Addressing all emotional concerns. When someone is suffering day in and day out, like my sister was, that hope, that glimmer of hope really washed away any of the facts that we did hear of the risk. And then, is there a healthcare proxy that's needed? Does someone truly have the ability to make such a hard and life-changing decision. And Dr. Henry spoke a lot about this in terms of some of the health disparities, the lack in trained, willing providers specialized in sickle cell disease that exists currently today. Access to disease-modifying agents and routine healthcare maintenance is also limited, as is. And as we all know, sickle cell disease has been a forgotten disease with a lot less public funding or private funding and less NIH funding as well. So access to gene therapy. So it's an expensive therapy, as Dr. Henry's already discussed. It's about $2 to $3 million. I think she even quoted higher, $2.2 to $3.1 million. And that's not including all of the hidden cost. Lifetime cost of individual living with sickle cell disease is about $1.7 million. And so gene therapy for sickle cell disease below 2 million is likely cost effective when looking at equity-informed thresholds for cost effectiveness. So we're not quite there yet. So is this distribution of funds ethical? Is the main question. Who's covering this very expensive gene therapy? We already don't have the resources or to even provide basic standard of care for sickle cell warriors. And so spending all of this money on a very expensive cost-saving or very expensive therapy when we don't even have access to basic care for all warriors is a little concerning. Additionally, is distributing more funds to things like gene therapy creating a bigger margin with these health inequities? Additionally, there's a lot of global concerns too. I mean, beyond the ones that I just spoke in terms of the concerns here in the US, but also there's a dearth of ethical and regulatory oversight for gene therapy in many African countries. So who's overseeing it, and will this be done ethically? And then the concern for genetic tourism. Additionally, it's very, very, very important for all of these studies that we get community involvement. It's really important that we understand truly what the community desires. If we look at a correlative in the 1990s, so the National Association of the Deaf called the FDA's decision to approve cochlear implants in children as unsound scientifically, procedurally, and ethically, as they view the surgery as invasive for defenseless children. They never got the National Association of Deaf opinion prior to making this FDA approved, and that caused huge uproar. Now they are in support, but initially it really should have been talked about and had the community involved. And similarly, I can see the same parallels here with sickle cell disease and gene therapy. There's a lot of stigma associated with sickle cell disease as well, as we all know. So negative effects of stigma occur on psychological well-being, on patient-provider relationships, and care-seeking behaviors and social consequences, so employment and community relationships. And then this gene therapy could fuel worsened stigma, that there's a need for correction. There's also a lot of moral and religious concerns. So playing with nature and altering genetic material. So when I was creating this PowerPoint, I just took a look to see if there's been any stance from any big religious groups. And what I found from the National Catholic Bioethics Center, Dr. Joseph Meany, is that he did say that this new CRISPR-Cas9, the gene editing with sickle cell disease, can be acceptable because it's used if strictly therapeutic, but there still is concerns. So gene therapy has a lot of promise. I am still excited. And you can see here with all the shirts and all of the hope that there's a lot of hope and optimism for cure, and we need the faith to keep going and keep fighting. So as a physician and a sister of someone with sickle cell disease, I am really excited as gene therapy has the ability to change the lives dramatically for those suffering from sickle cell disease as well as their families. And so the question is, was the bone marrow transplant for my sister worth it? I don't know. I do have the utmost respect for all of my sister's transplanters because I do know the life she would have led without it, of the constant suffering. However, it's important as we look at these new therapies that we continue to ask and address all of these ethical considerations. Thank you.
She is so brave, and we watched her grow up. I'm sorry, embarrassed you like that. Wow, that was amazing. Okay, so we have 3 warriors here now, and we have, oh, you said 1 online. So there's another person online? Okay, okay. All right, so. is
We
it-
are excited to begin the panel discussion on gene therapy, featuring 5 remarkable panelists. Our first panelist is Amy Patel. After obtaining her medical degree from Western University, Amy completed an internal medicine pediatrics residency at Loma Linda University and a pediatric adult fellowship in sickle cell disease at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. She's now the Associate Director of the Sickle Cell Comprehensive Program at UCLA. Our second panelist is Dorian Archie, a graduate of Howard University's John H. Johnson School of Communication. Dorian is a seasoned community and political organizer, advocate, and motivational speaker with experience from the Obama campaign and Biden's Vice Presidential Committee. He currently serves as program manager for the Cayenne Wellness March on Hospital campaign. Next, we have Juliette Romeo, a sickle cell warrior and advocate who raises awareness about sickle cell disease through her impactful PBS films. An award-winning filmmaker and disability advocate, Juliette promotes inclusion and accessibility while using her platform to inspire and empower others facing similar challenges. Our fourth panelist is Patrice Sterling, a passionate caregiver and patient and family advocate for individuals affected by sickle cell disease. Patrice has served on a patient and family advisory council and a care delivery committee within one of the largest healthcare systems in the U.S., working tirelessly to foster better outcomes through collaborative and compassionate care. Our fifth and final panelist is Lindrick Holmes, who at 29 faced the harshest challenges of sickle cell disease in adulthood. Struggling to find adequate care, Lindrick enrolled in a gene therapy trial, which he found transformative. Now back in Mobile, Alabama, Lindrick enjoys better health, volunteers locally, and cherishes time with his wife and 3 daughters. Welcome again, and thank you for being part of this important event.
We're going to kick this off with our speaker here. Ready?
Hello.
There we go. Hello. Right, right. Dorian's first. Not considered. Oh, okay. All right, so we're going to start off with Dorian. And Dorian is not. Oh, you get up and talk. I think you should get up and talk.
Okay.
Dorian is not considering
Yeah.
gene therapy.
Okay. I'll sit down.
And Dorian is not considering gene therapy at this point. So let's hear about it. Give us.
Thank you, Adrian, and thank you, Dr. Raleigh and Cayenne, for giving me this opportunity to share this with you. I have sickle cell SS, which is often considered the most severe form of it, but I don't like to think of it that way. I think we all experience this disease in our own way, and that what we consider severe or not severe can only be defined by us. Oh, okay. But yeah, I think we all experience this disease in its own way. But in regards to gene therapy and why I personally am not considering it at this point, it started, I guess once the clinical trials were underway and we first got word that this amazing technology, CRISPR, was now available and had cured someone, and they did the 60-minute special and all of those things. And I think a lot of us, probably responded with the same kind of elation and excitement that anybody would, finding out that the disease that has, impacted their life in some of the most horrific ways imaginable, that there might be this possibility of a cure, to be free of it. And I did, looked into it, did the research. And as someone who experiences only maybe one major crisis a year, I may be hospitalized once a year. Looking at where the technology and where it was right now didn't seem like it was really, a plausible thing, or something that I myself should really be considering. But my doctor, my hematologist, my former hematologist, wanted me to get involved in a clinical trial despite that. And I thought that was odd. Why would she want, I don't really meet the criteria from my perspective of someone who should be getting a bone marrow transplant, or who should be doing something that could possibly drastically alter my life or even take my life. So looking at it through that lens and from that perspective, I did not see it as a viable option for something I should consider for my life. I live on my own. I work. I am thriving for all intents and purposes. So why add something or do something that could drastically change that, or change my ability to be able to live and thrive the way that I feel that I already am? So when my doctor, brought that to me, I didn't really understand why. So it's for those reasons that, because I think the doctors themselves don't really have a clear view of where it is, where it's going. Like Dr. Patel here said, who are the best candidates for this? Who are the patients who would truly benefit from this? Where the disease itself is taking so much from their ability to live, that this is the best option for them. And, for me, myself, I just don't see that as a viable choice. Now, that's not a blanket statement. That's not to say that should this technology continue to grow, possibly removing the chemotherapy aspect of it, that I would not possibly consider this as an option down the road, depending on how sickle cell continues to impact my life. It's an ongoing thing. We grow and we change with this disease. This disease grows and changes with us, and how we meet that changes. So I don't know what may be down the road for me in living with sickle cell. So maybe it will be. So I don't want any of the warriors here or anybody listening to look at that as a blanket statement that, no, this is bad and I will never do it. The doctors don't get it and they just want our money. They just want to use us as guinea pigs, whatever. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I think you should look at it for the lens of your life, what is best for you. Like she said, to have those conversations with the people in your life, with your doctor, a real hard conversation about whether it truly is good for you and your life and where you are at and for your family. And I think if we do that, then I think as warriors, individually, we will meet this technology where it is and where it's going, and hopefully, possibly see more warriors truly cured of this and living and thriving to the best of what they could. That said, I'll continue it on.
Um, what Dr. Patel said made me think a lot while I was sitting here, like, wait a minute, am I still for gene therapy? And also listening to Dorian as well. But I realized that I still am saying I am for gene therapy because I feel like I come from the generation where doctors were saying, you're not going to live past 3. You're not going to live past 5. You're not going to live past 15. And they told me I wouldn't live past 25. And I think that that generation created the light bulb that started research, that they started to say, well, maybe there's something else we can do for these patients, right? And it was just something that I always felt in my heart was how it all began, all these studies, medications that were just for us, not residuals of someone else's medication they created for something else that now, oh, it just happens to work for us as well. And as I started to look into it for myself, then I would find clinical trials, but it would be, oh, you're too old. I'm like, how am I too old when I'm the one that made you realize we could live long enough for you to even try it, right? It's a lot of what I do in my work too. I also feel like as much as this disease has helped me to propel my life and turn my pain into purpose, it has also hindered me from being able to, if I get a phone call and I have to go out on set and I have to fly to LA, I can't do that as quickly as another director. And I felt like, am I losing opportunities? Am I missing out on things because I'm in the hospital? I have just psychologically all my life been dealing with a lot of FOMO because I'm always not where I should be. I could do all the work, but not be there for the reward, right? Because now I've drained myself out. I've used all my spoons. I need to go see my doctor. I cannot fly at this time because I have my appointment for my monthly blood exchange. There was always something. And I felt if I could not have to deal with medical responsibility 24/7, what would my day-to-day life look like? And I would be willing to step into that unknown and take that chance to know what it feels like to be not in pain 24/7. I don't know what that feels like. I'd like to know. I have 2 siblings that have had bone marrow transplants. My brother's was very successful, yet it was traumatizing to the family what he had to go through after he had to get chemo, his skin peeling off, and just trying to get back to himself. And today he's a thriving, college student. But my sister in her 30s, it was a little bit more of a struggle. She's still dealing with that. She's only had it for like 1.5 years now. And I think to myself, I made the decision I didn't want BMT, but I do want to see what gene therapy can do for me. I had a really great doctor that encouraged me and talked about this when it was something that was being discussed in the future. He literally was like, wait some years because gene therapy is coming, CRISPR is coming. I mean, I remember him pulling out the sheet on the examination bed and drawing me the molecular structure of what gene therapy could do. And I was very impatient. Like, he's talking about something that's in the future. Like, it seemed futuristic to me. And to be able to be standing here today talking about, I can actually have this done. I can get into a clinical trial. The FDA has approved it. It's fascinating and it's exciting to me to just be able to be a warrior that can say I've overcome that battle. I know too many people that would not, they don't have the chance today. They're no longer here. Some really great friends that are no longer here. And I always think to myself, when these great breakthroughs come out, I think about them. I think about how wonderful it would have been for my best friend Cookie, to have been here to see this moment, for Hertz to have seen this moment. But there's another side of me, my, I guess, documentarian side that says, why us? Why us now? Why us first? Am I stepping into the unknown and it's going to be something that's worthwhile? But I keep going back to that. I am willing to take that chance. I'm willing to take that chance and maybe even be the person to document this moment for people that are coming up behind me.
Patrice, who is a parent who is ambivalent about gene therapy. Thank you.
I am. My name is Patrice Sterling, and I am a caregiver of a young adult male who, as Dorian said earlier, is an adult now and can make his own decisions and will make his own decision. However, I am really blessed in that he does still care about what I think. And so looking at this, it's easy to jump at a shiny new object. But when you really put some thought into it, it can pull you back. It can give you thoughts around, hey, wait a minute, is this really good? And then our very first exposure to information around gene therapy really was not a positive experience. We went and we met with a world-renowned doctor who told us, well, really, he only has issues with pain. So you're probably not the best candidate for this. I mean, it's only pain. And so when he said that, something in me rose up, and I know it's the mom in me, and I almost leaped over the table. And my husband caught my hand and he just shook his head, no. And I said, I think this meeting is over. We're done. And so I went home and I began to do my own research. I spoke with his hematologist, and at the time we had gone to this other doctor because our healthcare system was not offering this treatment. And I spoke with his hematologist, and he talked to me about some other treatments because he said, you might just want to wait until it is available here. So we kept getting kind of pushback. And so when that happens, then I tend to step back and just give it more thought. And so I'm here today on the panel as ambivalent because I feel like I have not connected with a yes fully and with a no. I just feel like there's so many positive things. It's like Juliet said, just knowing how it feels not to live in that pain daily, right? You will do anything. It's the possibility, yes. And the possibility is hope. And who wants to walk past hope? No one does. However, when you see the glaring heat just off the side of that hope, you don't want to get too far. You don't want to get burned. There's just so many. There's so many pros. There's so many cons. And so I find myself still stuck in the middle. It is such a horrendous decision because it could change your life forever. It could change it for the positive. It could change it for the negative. Which way do I go? And so when he comes to me and he asks me questions about it, I'm very honest. I tell him exactly what I'm thinking until he says, "What would you do?" And then I'm stuck. And I'm still being honest because I'm really stuck. If I had a for sure in my heart of hearts, I would tell him, this is what I do. You don't have to follow what I would do, but this is what I would do. I can't even make that decision. I would imagine, and I can only imagine because I am trait, but I have no symptoms. I can only imagine and cannot even still, even what I've seen, what the warriors go through when they're in crisis. I can't fathom the pain. I can't fathom the psychological trauma. I just can't. But I do feel like if there was something in front of me, I would gravitate toward it. Just to see, just to have that chance. And so that's why I'm here today as ambivalent. It is just a horrendous decision. And there is no judgment. If you choose to go that route because it may be the best for you, you feel like it would be the best for you, there is no judgment. And I pray that you have all the support you need. And if you are on the other side that says, I can't do this, this is just too much, then I pray that you find relief in some other way.
Now we're going to hear from Lindrick, who's had gene therapy.
How you guys doing? I'd like to thank you guys for having me today. I'm really excited. Before I share my screen so I can show my slide, I like to do a little disclosure. So I recognize that all of us experience sickle cell disease very differently. And it's according to where we come from, the families that we are born into, our socioeconomic statuses. All of those are key factors into how the disease impacts us and the severity of the things that happen to us socially because of sickle cell disease. So to try to illustrate that, I want to use my story, using my experiences, to try to show my perspective. All right. Can you guys see this? Okay. All right, I want to start with this part. I was born in Mobile, Alabama, in a place called Pritchard, in a hood called Gulf Village. This is like a little project housing. My mama was a teenager, and she met my dad at a block party. So neither one of them even knew each other, let alone what sickle cell disease was. And I think I haven't heard anything, anyone touch on this topic about the ignorance that surrounds sickle cell disease, especially when it comes to giving birth to children like me, and how caregivers, most of the time, they accidentally become caregivers like my mother. My mother was a teenager just living life, and I just came in and interrupted the narrative that she was trying to, figure out who she was in life. And not only did she get pregnant, but she had a child with a disease she didn't understand. So just starting off right there, she needed to depend almost entirely on the system to take care of me. And that means that it costs a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of time off of work. There were times my mom, she couldn't make it to work because she had to rush me to the hospital. My disease was very bad, starting off very early. I was born with a touch of pneumonia. So literally since my birth, it's been a fight. And it goes right over to the school days. In the 90s in Mobile, Alabama, there was so much ignorance surrounding sickle cell disease. A lot of people associated it to AIDS. And it was hard for me to transition from grade to grade because I was hospitalized so much. I missed practically all of first grade, and I had to start first grade all the way over with. Just having to work with the public school system to try to make accommodations for me while I'm in a hospital. And it was during that time I was first introduced to racism. And I'm a double back on the topic of racism later because I feel like one of the things that connects not only sickle cell disease, but just all disparities dealing with Black and people of color within America kind of share some of the same issues because of race. But I'll get back to that. I'm gonna touch a bit on bullying. There were a lot of times where kids didn't want to play with me. They didn't know. Teachers didn't know. There wasn't a lot of education at that time about the disease, so they didn't really know what parameters there was to as far as dealing with a child like me, who was so sick, all the time. And so that led to me being nicknamed. My nickname was actually sickle cell because at the time they didn't really know how to pronounce Lindrick. And Lindrick was such a new name that they just, hey, that's sickle cell. Don't go play with him. You might catch AIDS or something, and it was traumatizing. The trauma starts systematically in the medical system, in the school system, socially and family. It starts really early. And so USA Women's and Children was a medical center that was the closest thing to a specialist that I could get. I did have specialists like Dr. Wilson that helped me along in childhood and made sure that Mobile County school system worked with my doctors and with the hospital to make sure I got schoolwork so I wouldn't fall so far behind my peers. But that was a battle. So it was hard being a kid. I couldn't just be a child and just play. And, that was really tough. And it was very hard for my mother dealing with a child at that time with sickle cell, both with the disease in the medical system and in the school system, because I was bullied. There were times where I would actually fake sickle cell crises just so I can get out of school. I didn't want to be dealing with that. So mama have to come, call out of work, get out of work just so she can come deal with that. That's very frustrating. It's not easy being the caregiver of somebody with sickle cell disease. So I think this is something that all of us who have the disease, all of the warriors are familiar with, dealing with sickle cell crisis and how to define ourselves in the world around us. Trying to figure out who we are. And a lot of us cling on to sickle cell disease as a form of identity. I never did. I never did. It was always an obstacle for me. There were things I wanted to do. I wanted to do karate. I wanted to do, martial arts or play sports, or there were a lot of things I saw around. It's Alabama, so everyone worships football in Alabama. I wanted to do that, and I couldn't do any of the things that my peers was doing. So it was very hard trying to find a safe space for someone like me. And I feel like there's a lot of people with sickle cell disease that can relate to that too. Just the intersectional identity that we have between our races, where we come from, our geographic background, our cultural identities, and how sickle cell just is intrusive and forces us to define ourselves based on our disease. And because of that, I really wanted to be normal. So I didn't care about no pity. Don't do anything for me just because you feel sorry for me, because that did nothing but invalidate me. That's how I felt at that time. I didn't want no one to just, that fake love, that fake care. They felt more bad about themselves than about me, to be honest. That's how I felt, so save that for yourself. I don't need it. You know what I mean? So I went through that, but no matter what kind of plan I came up with as far as building a life up for myself or building up my identity, sickle cell pain just burned it all down. It doesn't matter what I built. It was like a Jenga tower, and sickle cell was just a wrecking ball that wrecked it and I had to build it all over again. And it's been a repetitive cycle. I didn't have much of a support system after transitioning from pediatric care to adult care. My mom, my grandmother was a huge caregiver for me. There were times in my life when my mom actually, she gave up, and my grandmother had to pick up where my mom gave up at to help finish raising me and helping me out in dealing with the medical system and stuff. But when it came to adult care, no one, like none of the doctors would even allow my grandmother to be in a room with them, And at that time, I wasn't really educated about my disease. I wasn't really educated about my rights. And so I went through the whole cycle of trying to find a job and trying to stay employed, because employers didn't understand sickle cell disease and didn't understand that sometimes we go to the hospital, we're gone for like a week. I can't tell you when I'm gonna go get hospitalized. I can't tell you, I can't control these episodes. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I just want to make sure. All right. I couldn't control those episodes. So it was hard to stay employed. I tried getting educated. I tried to go to college. I'm in college now, but I'll get back to that. I couldn't finish school because of the disease, because pain is the universal truth. And my disease was very, very bad. I know that it's different for everyone, but for people like me, I had SS, and it was terrible. I was hospitalized, almost monthly. So it's very hard getting anything productive done. I just could not afford to drink. I just couldn't. Hope was a luxury for me if my disease allowed me to dream. You know what I'm saying? And so I remember what got me towards gene therapy. My last little break, I was on my own. I was like 24, 25 years old. I was in college, and I was almost through with college. But I had acute chest syndrome. It was real bad. And at that time, like for every other year, I would have acute chest syndrome real bad. And the year before this time, I almost died. I actually coded. And so I was afraid of winter. Every winter, I would get acute chest syndrome. So when wintertime came, I was just like, yo, I don't want to die in the hospital. So I was going to kill myself. But before I did that, I remember the conversation I had in pediatric care when I was a child about bone marrow transplant. And I just Googled it, and I called NIH because that was the first thing that popped up, and I got in touch with them. And because my mom, going right back to the beginning of the slide, my mom, I don't have any full-blooded brothers or sisters, none. There's no one that I could depend on to be a donor for me. That was out, so they offered me gene therapy. At that time in my life, my disease was claiming my life anyway. So for me, the decision was pretty obvious. I was either going to die in the hospital because of sickle cell, or I was going to die fighting. And so I chose to try it. I didn't care. I was like, I chose, I'm a die on this hill. I'm gonna fight this. I'm not gonna let sickle cell have it. And so boom, gene therapy starts. They fly me up to DC. They tell me what to expect. They tell me, you can, all the hazards, like, hey, you could probably die going through this. I'm like, I'm dying anyway. That was my attitude then. So I really didn't. The concerns I hear a lot of people on this panel, and I've been hearing all day, that people, when they think the apprehension they have, I understand the apprehension. I understand the ambivalence. I get that. But for me, my disease at that time was so bad, I didn't have the luxury. It was either or for me. And since, when you got that mindset of like, I'm probably going to die anyway, choose your poison. And I chose gene therapy for me. And to be honest with you, it was not as hard as a battle from my experience as it was with me dealing with sickle cell and having to depend on a system that has failed me time and time again. So, you know, just like a lot of the doctors described, you know, I had to get the apheresis machine they use Plerixafor to collect my cells. I was a very, very hard stick, super hard stick. So I had complications with my port and stuff. Got a blood clot in my heart. So it wasn't really necessarily related to the actual gene therapy. It was just a complication that came just because of I've been stuck tens of thousands of times, and they just had to do extreme things to ensure that I was able to go through, finish going through with the process or what have you. So you will see a picture, one of the pictures I got of Dr. John Tisdale speaking with Reuters, the journalist from Reuters. That's the lab where they corrected my my genes, and you know, with the process where they said they collected through the you know, through the apheresis machine with Plerixafor, and they take it to a lab. This is one of the labs that they would use to modify my genes. That's my grandmother at the bottom, and she was my caregiver for the entire process. Strong woman, strong Black woman. I love that woman. She carried the entire family. She didn't just carry me. She carried the entire family. If it wasn't for that woman, not only would I have been dead and gone because of sickle cell, but being in the social position that I was in, coming from a place like Pritchard, Alabama, there are other social hazards, you know what I mean, like gangs and you know, just ignorance, just stupidity that I could have got sucked up into. But Mama worked her tail off to get us out of the hood. So, you know, you need an environment in order for you to adequately change, you know. And after gene therapy, obviously it was successful. I got transplant in 2018, and I came back, and one of the panelists had mentioned that she just imagined like what it would be like to live life without pain, and it's amazing. It's amazing. It's breathtaking, but it's not just life changing for you. It's life changing for the people around you. And that was a huge adjustment process, not just for me, because it felt like I had to play catch up with a lot of things, like small things, like cutting the grass, like, you know, small things like washing dishes, standing up there just for hours, chasing after the kids, just doing, you know, trivial things, and then just trying to conceptualize things like doing what I want to do. I was stuck in such a survival mode, and honestly, I'm still dealing with that. I was stuck in survival mode most of my life, 28, 29 years. I was geared to think about what I was able to do. You know, you got sickle cell disease, so you got to think when someone says, "Hey, y'all want to go to the beach? Linda, do you want to go to the beach?" I got to think, is there a hospital nearby? I might go in the sickle cell crisis on the way there. I don't want to ruin y'all trip, so I'm gonna stay at home. And a lot of times that made me sort of like a social leper, because I was just so distant and staying off from people, because it was humiliating to have these elaborate plans and these things, you know, with people that care about you, to have fun and spend time with you. But I can't participate in that way because I don't know when sickle cell is going to strike. And I don't know if you're prepared for that. But, you know, now I have all this free, I can just go here and I can go there. And so I was kind of like a squirrel on caffeine and milk. I was everywhere. I was all over the place. Couldn't nobody stop me. But at the same time, it also caused a lot of schisms in my relationships, because people were used to being in a certain setting. So there were things that happened that were traumatic because of me, you know, doing it after gene therapy. One of the consequences, you know what I'm saying, was I had to go through a divorce, and there were friendships that broke. There were a lot of different things because people were dependent on me being dependent. And at that time, I got a lot of catching up to do. There's a lot of dreams and stuff that I was chasing that sickle cell took from me. I got to get after it, you know? So, in this picture, this at the far, I don't know how it shows up on your screen, but on me, it's the far left. There's a picture of me and my little sister at Busch Gardens. I was having a sickle cell crisis. You can see me in pain as a child right there. And I was trying to be a strong boy because my sister, you know, we come from the projects. We ain't never really have anything nice for real. But my auntie, she got married to a guy who was in the Air Force, and he was stationed up there in Richmond, Virginia. And she took us out there to go to Busch Gardens, and we flew all the way out there, and I had a sickle cell crisis. And usually that means the trip is over, but I tried to be strong and pretend like it was nothing but just pain, but I was in pretty bad shape. You see how happy my little sister was? I was not gonna let sickle cell conquer that, man.
Yes.
I was not gonna let sickle cell conquer that, man. But I didn't get to enjoy Busch Gardens. She did. I was in pain. They had to push me around in that cart the entire time. I was stuck. And then right after that, I had to get hospitalized. So I was stuck in Virginia for a week. But Alicia Kayla got to have the experience of Busch Gardens. Well, after I got cured, I say cured, from my opinion, comparatively for how I was and what I'm able to do now, I say cured of sickle cell. I got my vengeance back, and I took, my ex-wife, huh?
I'm in tears. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be like watching the time, and this is such a glorious story, and their stories have been so wonderful. And what I really want us to do is I want us to get another session and have all y'all back together and have us have this. I'm so sorry. I think I don't know what I am. I am a lot of things. And I'm in tears and I'm joyful because I got choices. I want you to share your entire story, and I want y'all to get and have this discussion. I want you to come to my house and we're going to cook and we're going to talk about this. But just, Nancy, you know, Pat, you know, the choices all my life, there were no choices. My mama's life, my grandmom's life, no choices. And now y'all can stand up and say, well, I don't know. And I am so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful to the people that volunteered and got out there first, and the families that did all of that. I'm so sorry, I'm not supposed to do that. I know, but oh my God, I'm so thankful. I'm thankful to all of you. And my baby's got choices. And everybody else's baby got choices now. Carolyn, I can't do that.
So I came in late on this, but this is a amazing session, and I just want to share because I have I probably know more folks with sickle cell disease that are gone than I do that are still around. And so as I think back over how sad I am about them, I also rejoice in the fact that you guys are around to have options that they never had, you know. And it makes my heart happy to know that we're not just limited to living with sickle cell and struggling and suffering and families falling apart and families living in poverty because they have to focus on certain things. And so this is an incredible time for people with sickle cell disease. It's an incredible time for those of us who surround people with sickle cell disease, because what it means to us that there are possibilities, that people now have the ability to select things or decide not to select things that were never available to them. And so I rejoice in the newness of things in the sickle cell community and what that's going to mean to us in the future, what it's going to mean to our children in the future, what it will mean to you, those of you who are warriors who will be able to partake of this, you know, or who will be able to choose that life with sickle cell disease for you is okay with sickle cell disease. But Adrian, who, you know, Adrian is my road dog, okay? Sometimes I don't want to be around her, but I have to be, okay? Carolyn, you know, I've known Carolyn since we were both, well, I was older than she was, but we were both younger, you know. And when she came and took me across country to Illinois to tell people how to take care of folks with sickle cell disease, like I had some, you know, like they were gonna listen to me. Okay, here come this Black girl talking about, well, you know, that ain't the way you take care of sickle cell. But I can just tell you that I am so full from the reality that somebody finally cares about sickle cell. You know, I went to school with people who I didn't even know had sickle cell. When I became the sickle cell nurse at University of Southern California, guess who were my patients? My classmates. I had been to elementary school, to junior high school, to high school, and now I was their nurse. And never once, I'm gonna tell you what I told Thomas. He's gone, resting in peace, Thomas Johnson, who I love dearly, was my friend. I said, you know what? You got sickle cell? He was like, yeah. I said, you know what? That's a damn shame. I said, I went all through school with you. You never told me once you had sickle cell. I just thought you were lazy and trifling and didn't want to come to school. Okay. So these are times that we can rejoice and that we can be happy about, and that we can surround and we can hug each other and we can be thankful that someone finally cared enough, even if they want a lot of money for it. They finally cared enough to put it there so we could at least make the choice of whether
Pat,
we're going to try and get that money or
They,
not.
they care because women like you made them care. Because y'all marched into their offices and told them how to take care of us. Because you guys took up the fight and put it on your shoulders and made them care about us, made them care about our lives. Y'all did that. Y'all took up that fight so that we could live well, so that we could have options and choices, and the choices are only going to increase. And I thank you and I applaud you for that work.
Well, let me,
So Dorian,
Let me-
so Dorian, I just want you to know that I am who I am because of who you and others with sickle cell disease are. It's a love, a mutual love, because the struggles that you guys encounter on a daily basis as you interact with healthcare systems and other folks, even families who got judgment, you know, because it ain't just the healthcare systems. I just want you to know that we do care, that we do love you. There may be times when we feel like our hands are tied and there's nothing we can do. You know, there are times when I've gone in with patients and closed the door because they were acting crazy. Said, what the hell is your problem? How's that working for you? You know, so just know that, you know, that you are loved, that you are valued, that you guys make a difference, and that we wouldn't even have a reason for existing without you. So thank God for what he's given us, because you make us better.
Thank you. So another powerful session. Wow, that's an understatement, right? I want to thank Dr. Ivy and Adrian for doing a great job. Dr. Sharma, and Dr. Thompson, powerhouses. Dora Clayton, Tangela Henry, we're still here, right? Yes? And in our panel. This is why we do this. If you read my manifesto, I said it's about you. And so we do this with you in mind. So with that, Mr. Holmes, I don't know if you're still there. Your story brought my friend to tears because there is hope and she does have choices that she's been waiting for a long time as a mom. I do hope that we have another opportunity for us to utilize your story because we're going to ask you to come back, this time in person. Are you ready to come to California?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.